Viewers of the Centre Court MBA Festival know how fascinated I am with this convergence between business and technology. And where better to explore that than at the Tepper School of Business, right in the heart of Carnegie Mellon University. In fact, literally right in the heart. That wonderful new campus building is right in the centre of the campus. And I'm reminded as introduce my guests, not only does the Tepper School attract remarkable talent into the MBA classroom, they also attract remarkable talent into their team. It's a pleasure to introduce Tad Brinkhoff. Tad is the Assistant Dean of the Master's Programs at Tepper. He has over 20 years of leadership positions in some of the country's top MBA programs. Add to that 8 years working across the software, automotive, retail industries. Tad speaks 4 languages. He plays the cello. And of course, he has a PhD. His PhD focused on career impact of graduate management education, and particularly the MBA. So the staff are just as impressive as the students. In this case, Robert Guyden. Robert is from the class of 2023. So the clock is ticking, just a few months left as you complete the 2-year program. Studied finance and economics in undergrad at Truman State, spent 6 years in financial services with Commerce Bank, and then a treasury role at Collins Aerospace. And you start to see this movement towards the stars. He's a consortium fellow and a Toigo MBA fellow, and will share some of the experiences he's had with his internships. Thank you, both of you, for joining us at Centre Court. Perhaps, Tad, we can start with you. I talked about Tepper within CMU, which already, gives a sense of the extraordinary situation of the business school. But perhaps those should be your words with a general introduction of the school, its values, and what the intelligent future that sits behind you on Zoom really means for Tepper.
Sure. Well, Matt, thanks for having us today. We're excited to be here as part of Poets and Quants, and we're grateful for the chance to talk about Tepper at Carnegie Mellon University. Carnegie Mellon University is different than a lot of universities. We are a merger of 2 institutes, the Carnegie Institute and the Mellon Institute. Back in the early 1900s, we are a product of Pittsburgh University, or Pittsburgh, here in a very industrial city at one time that has really reinvented itself through technology and through healthcare innovation. And so I think that's kind of one of the hallmarks is we're scrappy. Based on our history, we have a unique DNA, and I think that defines who we are at the Tepper School. You're right, we set within Carnegie Mellon, and that DNA is part of who we are in terms of focus on technology, innovation, and reinvention. And so it's a really unique place in a lot of ways compared to other universities. We're named after David Tepper, who was a hedge fund manager who grew up in Pittsburgh, started Appaloosa Management, and now owns the Carolina Panthers. So very involved in the sports industry. So that's who we are. I think it's a unique setting for students to be in. Obviously, we're known for technology, and we'll continue to be known for technology. But we also offer other things. Entrepreneurship is very strong. Innovation, we have a strong innovation. Energy sector, we have a strong energy club as well. So although we're known for tech, there are a lot of other great things happening at Tepper and at CMU.
And I guess the MBA with that broader general management focus, but then how you can then choose electives to really bring in, whether it's data analytics or so many other different opportunities. Tell us about the course, perhaps the flexibility that is inherent in the 2-year program, but also how you're guiding Robert and his classmates on the career side and all of the softer skills that they're developing.
Great question. Obviously, academics are foundational part of any MBA program, but we put a strong emphasis on career outcomes, tying that academic experience and co-curricular experience to the career outcomes. And so our academics are unique in some ways. I mean, in some ways, we're very traditional. We have our core electives or our core classes, and then we have our electives. One thing I've noticed that's different about Tepper and CMU as compared to other MBA programs where I've been, students have the option to take unlimited number of classes outside of Tepper. So if you want to take a class in artificial intelligence, computer science, machine learning, you have that option. And those are all areas where Carnegie Mellon is generally ranked #1. So not only can you take advantage of what's going on in the business school, but you can walk across the street. We're not a huge campus, and you can really take advantage of those opportunities. We do offer tracks, and we have 11 different tracks, but some of the most popular: analytics, energy, entrepreneurship, product development, and product management. And those tracks are really guided by the faculty, and it's one that students in their first semester apply to, and they have to be selected. They have to have the right background, and it's a pretty rigorous experience. It includes a capstone and close working relationship with the faculty that are involved with that track. And faculty are very passionate about the track. Sometimes you have to have an interview to be part of that track, but it's a core element. Students aren't required to do a track, but many choose to do that based on the passion that they're pursuing in their career program. Our career office is full of coaches that have industry experience. So we want people that really can walk the walk and talk the talk at the same time. And so we have a core group of industry experts that will guide the students, if it's consulting or finance or investment banking or whatever it might be. Every student is assigned a coach, and they can work with that coach frequently, and so have a strong support for each individual student with a coach assigned to them. So
right. So choices, lots of choices, Robert. And of course, there you were. If we go back, 3 years in the pandemic, you were enjoying a successful career. So what was your thought process? And then saying, I need to find the right MBA program for you. What were the considerations that ultimately led you to choose Tepper?
Yeah, great question. Actually, for me, I was fortunate to have a handful of mentors at the time as I was successful in my career. As I was expressing to them the yearning of more and more responsibility, they started pointing me in the direction to an MBA because both of them had gone on that process. So that was like the first spark in that. And funny enough, I don't even think Tad knows the story. When I first went to a MBA fair, I believe it was in Chicago. So I flew up and everything. One of the first people I interacted with was a former admissions director at Carnegie Mellon University. This was years ago. I can't even remember the year number, but he went on to work with Management Leadership for Tomorrow, MLT, but he made me promise him that I would, whenever I got to the process, I would fully vet out Tepper. And so I did just that. Growing up predominantly in Texas, where I went to high school, I had an affinity to some regions in the country, but I took him up on that offer and went through my process, and I ended up really falling in love with the program. I think the differentiation point that put me over the edge was kind of twofold. One being the innovation, specifically the Schwartz Center of Entrepreneurship, which has led me to my current career endeavors right now. And then the second, which is actually maybe not as well known, was the Accelerate Leadership Center. So for me, from a skills perspective, when I was using the 2 years to go to business school full time, I thought I already had really good interpersonal skills, but I wanted to be that much more intentional when engaging with people, and my temperament and executive presence, which Tepper definitely has all the resources in that regards. And again, it's not as broadcasted as I think it should be. So that's one. And then the second one being the Schwartz Center for Entrepreneurship. When people think entrepreneurship, it's normally high growth, tech, which there's plenty of that here, robotics, artificial intelligence, but there's also alternative paths. I've really fallen in love with the entrepreneurship through acquisition model. Not only does Tepper have faculty around that, they have a whole workshop and design around that, to where you would take classes, kind of how Tad spoke on a little bit earlier, in terms of a whole course, required courses, if you want to go down that path, elective courses, and then ultimately like your capstone. So those have manifested in more ways than not, if I look at myself prior to joining into now. And yeah, it's been all for the better.
So Robert, do you sort of check your preconceptions at the door? There are so many tracks, there are so many centers, there are just so many possibilities. Yeah. Do you need to approach this just with an adventurous mindset?
I definitely believe so. So coming in, already having a finance background, not only in financial services, specifically with debt capital markets, then also getting a different exposure on the other side of the desk, working in corporate finance with treasury, I was pretty dead set on just a higher level of finance, whether that be in asset management or investment banking, which I recruited for and was successful for both. So that, I think my experience is a little unique to where I was freed up my entire first year to explore and have an adventurous mindset. And that's how you kind of stumble upon. But asking as many questions as possible before you get on campus is paramount. So you know how to best leverage your time.
I think I'd be like a kid in a candy store. In terms of the learning experience, juggling an intensive course load, it's a rigorous MBA program, but also, you know, all of the and the mix of group work, individual work, but there's so many clubs and tracks and activities within Tepper, let alone everything else that Tad mentioned at CMU. So how do you then prioritize your time, Robert, and say, well, I can't do everything. This will be my focus.
Yeah, great mindset. That's like the main thing that I think most MBAs juggle with between career, social, and then like academics. So coming in ahead of time and knowing what you prioritize in terms of like your own set of values, what you want to get out of experience is like paramount. But once you're here specifically at Tepper, yes, I would be lying if I said the coursework, especially required coursework, isn't rigorous, especially some of the coding classes. But the beautiful thing about the MBA program is that it is quite a bit of group work to where you get to leverage people who have experience. So like something that's so foreign to you, someone is like very proficient, almost to the professor's level in some regards. So you get a lot of help in that terms. And you actually have, in my opinion, an exponential learning curve, learning from a peer in a more informal way after already attending class. So that's something that's prevalent here. And everyone like is almost eager and excited to kind of like share what they know. So maybe you bring a finance background to like the finance classes that come easy to you, but someone else can help you out with like statistical decision making and going through R. So that's a beautiful thing in terms of that. In terms of clubs, I always recommend starting off with one or two clubs, one career focus, one maybe social focus. So for me in particular, I was really passionate about getting involved with the Black Business Association here. My first year, helping out with different events, obviously learning like the current board members, learning some of the pain points, and that positioned me well to within like my first year in the spring, taking over club leadership as like the president and knowing what to do, hitting the ground running and getting involved with faculty. So that was more so on the affinity club side. And then on the professional side, the most obvious one is the Graduate Finance Association, but I ended up spending a lot more time in the Graduate Entrepreneurship Club, not only from learning from the second years when I was a first year, but then also just getting exposed to all these different various career paths, speakers that we have come in. I mean, there's like always like a robust lineup of founders and startups, and it's so overwhelming in like the most positive and beautiful way. And so that's where my entrepreneurship bug, I think, really masterized.
And share with just before we went live, you'd done two great internships with PIMCO and with Raytheon, but as you said, there's an entrepreneurial project to scratch there, and that's where you headed after Tepper.
Yes. So given a little backdrop, I never maybe associated myself with like that spark or that idea, that, you know, that $1 billion unicorn idea. I could in a different world kind of see myself working within a startup space, but I always gravitated towards finance because cash flows and everything kind of makes sense to me. So when I stumbled upon entrepreneurship through acquisition, it was like a best of both worlds. I think I have a unique set of interpersonal skills as far as like relating with people, working with people well, understanding their background. It's probably because both my parents were in the military, so I lived in like 14 different places growing up. So I've become accustomed to like adapting. So it marries up these two aspects in my personality that I think is really, really, really great. So My finance skills was built upon these internship experiences that you mentioned. So over the summer, I was in Newport Beach, California at PIMCO, largest fixed income manager in the world. I think they manage about maybe 2 trillion at the time. So I got a really unique opportunity, not necessarily go straight to bonds, but work on a couple of alternative investment funds that they have, specifically like private credit, working with distressed assets, seeing how that's all built, all the people that work on that team. It was a really great experience, but I secretly in the back of my head kind of was sizing people up. I was like, okay, I think, if I were to do something, not at this same level, I could probably do something on my own. So with that PIMCO experience, and then also a really unique opportunity that I got through the Twigo Foundation as a Twigo Fellow of working with Raytheon's pension investments team. I think the 3rd largest corporate pension plan in the United States. They manage about 55 billion. I got to work specifically with the private equity and real estate investments that they made. So got a lot of due diligence work, working on the underbelly on you insert the largest private equity firm. I got to meet with them, ask questions about their fundraising process, how they source investments. And again, the same thing, over 11 months, you start to really digest information. Wouldn't say I'm a professional at that level, but I am leaps and bounds far away from where I started. So those 2 things have coupled me into pursuing starting my own fund, a search fund, entrepreneurship through acquisition, and just acquiring one firm, roughly 20 to 40 million dollars in revenue. And then the beautiful thing about that, I get to use my finance and valuation skills I think I have a competitive advantage in, source one deal, and then I get to use my interpersonal skills, leadership skills that I've built through the Accelerate Leadership Center, executive presence, to actually run and lead a small business, hopefully for growth and eventual action.
I look forward to following those next chapters. Tad, it's clear to me that Robert could run rings around me with discounted cash flow, but he's also, he speaks to the interpersonal skills, the leadership skills that are also so much part of the Tepper experience. As you walk across the campus, as you walk down the corridors and glance into a study room, what is it that you see, this energy that makes Tepper such a special place?
Yeah, it's a good question. I know when I first got here and I connected with Robert, I think the class size we're not a large program. We have 200 students. And so it's easy for us to connect with the students like Robert. And we have some commonality in terms of where Robert went to college, went to university, undergrad. And so I think that the class size allows us to get to know the students well, but it also allows the students to get to know each other in a very personal way. And as part of our career outcomes, it's those networks and those relationships that are really going to make a difference. And so through our student government and other activities, we really try and foster those kinds of relationships. I think the other thing that's unique is just this being part of the CMU DNA, the culture here of innovation, decentralized. We have a decentralized structure. And so that gives us a lot of freedom to try different things as a college, as a school, but it also frees up students to do those kinds of things as well. So the dean has been very supportive of that, lifted restrictions on the number of classes students could take across campus, which I think has been helpful. And we also have a culture of coaching here, like Robert talked about, the Accelerate Leadership Center, heavily focused on coaching from the leadership perspective, kind of at the macro level. But we also have students that are assigned coaches for the career center, so the micro level, getting that next position. And then you have the Schwartz Center, which is just right in the middle of our business building that services the whole campus, but is really involved in the Pittsburgh ecosystem, as well as through the Northeast corridor as well. So I think those are some of the things that really stand out to me as being unique. So the great history, we're building on that foundation and hope to get even better.
Now, Tad, whether Robert or any other, we only do an MBA once. So we really know one school, one program. You have 20 years of industry experience across a number of great schools. As you then speak with future applicants to business school, the viewers of Center Court, What is the advice that you then have to them in terms of aligning their passions, their interests, the backgrounds as diverse as Robert and his other 199 classmates, all of those values, career goals? What is the advice to help them to find the right program?
I do have lots and lots of conversations around that topic. I mean, the first question I ask are, what are your goals? And that's key, right? Because if you want to do one thing or you want to do another, we've got to clearly define what those goals are. And those goals are based on introspection. And so if someone hasn't done the self-reflection, I ask them to go back and reflect, and then let's define what your goals will be. And maybe Tepper is the right fit. Maybe it's not. We want the students to align what we offer with their career goals. And if it's a fit, and many times it is, we want to encourage that. But it really starts with that introspection, goal identification. And then in terms of future goals, or future positions that the student might want to attain, or a direction they might want to take, I personally strongly encourage informational interviews. So talk to somebody, get on LinkedIn. And I always tell the students, 10 minutes a day on LinkedIn is what you should be doing. Get on LinkedIn, contact a CMU or a Tepper alum that's doing something that you think you might find interesting, and have that conversation and know what it's going to take to reach that position. Worst case, you're going to learn something. Best case, you're going to increase your network, which is going to be the key to successful career outcomes. And so it's really putting yourself out there and having those conversations. I mean, we're having this conversation today with Robert because he put himself out. We had a conversation. That's how the relationship starts, and that's how careers are really developed. But you really have to step outside your comfort zone in a lot of ways to do that. And you get busy, you get bogged down, but you really got to focus on goals and where I want to go, and then talking to people about how to get there.
Right. And your experience, Robert, in reaching out to Tepper students, Tepper graduates, they're also the sort of people that get back to you.
For sure. Yeah. Tad put it so perfectly in terms of the initial question, and just having goals and like taking it a step further. Before I came, I had like a notes on my notes app on my phone, and I listed out the 10 things that I wanted to get out of my business school experience. So that was always my North Star in terms of, if I was starting to stretch myself a little too thin, I would just reevaluate everything that I'm a part of. And if it wasn't into that initial 10, doesn't mean I can't be flexible, but I just got to reevaluate and self-reflect. I mean, I spent years self-reflecting my business school application before actually press and submit. So that's critical, because it's so overwhelming in a good way. And there's all the resources that you could possibly imagine, even more. So I think the reason why I'm in the situation that I'm in is because I took the time to reflect. And then when people know what you're about, they know how to aid you, and like they want to, right? One phenomenal thing, and another reason why I ended up choosing Tepper, is because I went to a smaller undergrad institution that Tad and I both have an affinity for. And I wanted to replicate that, except at like a larger institution, somewhere like Carnegie Mellon. And then, yeah, it's exceeded my expectations in terms of relationships with, the assistant dean, Tad himself, and then like the admissions, and just being like so heavily involved in the program and not just being a student. And then to cap it all off, my professors, especially my entrepreneurship professors, will just email me different ideas or different things going on. And thinking back on college, it's a little weird to kind of have like that open of a relationship with your professors, but that's something that you can definitely achieve and get like a sense of direction and informal mentorship, actually, whenever you're just like you have clearly defined goals. So I've experienced all those things and more. Yeah, it's been a perfect marriage.
You've packed so much into 2 years, and yet they're going by at light speed, and you are approaching graduation for another new exciting adventures. If we were to look at that notes app that you had with some of those goals, and you think of the last 2 years, the unexpected moments, the most memorable experiences, the things that you're going to take with you, what would you be updating on the notes app?
Oh man. So are you asking what I would update post-graduation?
Yeah, as you think about the last 2 years, it's just, I never expected this. It was extraordinary. I'm always going to take this with me as just a distinct memory of Tepper and the MBA program.
Yeah. I think one of my goals was, I guess this is going to be broadcast. I'll give a nugget. One of my goals was to meet half of my classmates. Now, it's a smaller program, so I thought that was like a little bit more attainable, but that kind of blew me away because at the very beginning, I thought I was going to be like this only person that's like, okay, I'm going to make it a point to meet people that are so different than me, like intentionally, right? And I thought I would be unique in that regards, but you come to business school and like everyone has like this genuine curiosity about everyone's background, and it's like extremely supportive, so much so that I feel like I've mentioned the Accelerate Leadership Center so many times. The Accelerate Leadership Center actually had like this structure at the very beginning when you start, where you like have like a blind 25 questions with a random classmate of yours. So you're just randomly paired, and then you see the person's name, you meet at a coffee shop, and then you ask somewhat invasive questions about like who you are as a person, what do you want to achieve, your family dynamic. So that was just, I thought I was so coy about it, where it's just like, oh no, Tepper already knows kind of deal. So that was something that kind of threw me for a loop. But yeah, it's been nice to kind of see.
And bearing in mind the consortium, an ambassador for them, the Toigo Foundation, your final piece of advice for anyone that's considering investing in themselves, going to business school, what would that be?
One, the ROI is definitely worth it. Not even for, I mean, the dollar wise, yes. Even though I walked away from like those opportunities, but also in such a more fruitful way in terms of like just people. I'm inspired by people. I get energized by people. So I would say it's definitely worth it. In terms of consortium, specifically, talk to as many people as possible that's in the seat that you want to be in. And so it's going back to what Tad said. So you could take, being in business school, wanting to talk with people that are in like the career paths you want, like really be intentional about like the people that you reach out to, regular students, obviously, but then also people involved in the consortium in Twigo. Yeah.
That's great. So Tad, you said 10 minutes on LinkedIn every day. Make it intentional. Robert has reinforced that. Perhaps just some of the other ways that our viewers can get in touch with Tepper through info sessions, that you might be holding virtually, or as your team travels around the world. What would that be?
So obviously our website, we just held a webinar yesterday with several entrepreneurship professors that were talking about what Tepper offers. So obviously our website, we have an email, mba-admissions@andrew.cmu.edu. And then if anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, connect away, see Tad Brinkerhoff. Either I'll be glad to spend some time or connect you with our admissions team, because it's always about that one-on-one relationship. And so we're happy to start the conversation, whether Tepper's the best fit for you, or if it's not, let's have the conversation. I'd love to help others find their path so that we can attract more Robert Gates to the program, because he's a star and we want more like him. So
well, you have a shared past with Robert, your undergrad, now this shared present, and from what you were describing of the wonderful community, a shared future. For us to be able to bring both of you together into this space and share your insights, your experiences with the Center Court audience was incredibly valuable. Thank you, both of you. Robert, good luck with those entrepreneurial next steps. And I'm sure people on LinkedIn will be reaching out to both of you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. I have one final thing.
Please.
I love the direction Tepper is going in many ways with the faculty curriculum and everything, but specifically the leadership that Tepper has right now. I am extremely excited about the future because of the folks like Tad and the people in leading admissions. So please take him up on that. He seems maybe like extremely accessible right now, and he is, but he is an extremely busy person. So I would definitely tell and encourage viewers to take him up on that. Introduce yourselves. The only thing holding you back is like what you tell yourself in your head. So it doesn't mean necessarily, Tepper will end up in your future. However, it never hurts to actually have a conversation with a person like Tad. So I would implore you to do that.
Those are great
Or
final
myself.
words, and what a great way to end. Robert, Tad, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.